All right, so have you ever, had this feeling like your D&D character is missing something?
Yeah.
Like they're competent,
Right.
they're rolling well, but they're not really captivating.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, having a good character sheet
Right.
is just the foundation.
Sure.
You really need like those little quirks and flaws to bring a character to life.
Yes.
And, that's what we're going to be looking at today.
Okay, cool.
We're going to be drawing inspiration from this article that I found on LitRPG Reads. It's called The Secret to Creating Memorable D&D Characters.
It's a good one. I actually, this reminds me
Okay.
of a recent tabletop RPG session I was in.
Okay.
And my character, this like totally stoic, lawful good paladin,
Right.
had a completely irrational fear of squirrels.
Okay.
Like full-on panic attack.
Wow.
Drop your sword and run kind of fear.
A fearless paladin
Yeah.
brought down by squirrels. That's fantastic.
So picture this. We're in the middle of this intense negotiation
Okay.
with this shadowy figure.
Uh-huh.
We're trying to secure a safe passage for the group.
Right.
And suddenly a squirrel scurries across the table.
Oh, no.
My paladin just completely loses it.
Oh, my God.
Jumps up on the table, starts yelling about demonic rodents.
He doesn't know.
Nearly ruins the entire deal.
That's amazing. Did it impact the game in other ways?
Oh, it totally did.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, it became this running joke.
Sure.
But it also added this unexpected depth to my role playing.
Okay.
It forced me to think about how this fear would affect his actions
Right.
and his
Boy.
decisions in different situations.
Yeah.
It actually ended up being a huge asset to the group.
Really? So I'm all ears. How did a fear of squirrels become a strength?
So later on in the campaign, we were exploring this ancient forest,
Okay.
and we stumbled upon this hidden grove
Uh-huh.
that was supposedly guarded by this powerful magical creature.
Right.
And it turns out the creature was just a bunch of squirrels,
Oh.
but they were unusually aggressive.
Okay.
So my paladin, terrified,
Yeah.
but determined to protect the group,
Right?
ended up using his fear to his advantage.
How did he do that?
He channeled all that terror into this frenzied, almost berserker-like fighting style.
Wow.
And he single-handedly cleared the entire grove.
That's incredible. You turned a weakness into this really memorable moment.
No, it was great.
That's what this article on LitRPG Reads is all about. It's these flaws and quirks aren't weaknesses, they're opportunities to make your character more relatable, more human, and ultimately more compelling.
That makes a lot of sense, and it makes me think about all these iconic characters in literature and film.
Right.
They're often defined by their flaws, right?
Exactly.
Hamlet with his crippling indecision.
Yes.
Frodo constantly wrestling with the burden of the ring.
Right.
Even Indiana Jones with his fear of snakes.
Yeah, it's those imperfections that make them so fascinating.
Right.
So relatable,
Yeah, and that's what we can do with our D&D characters.
Exactly.
We can embrace their quirks and flaws.
Right.
And we're not just creating characters.
Right.
We're creating stories.
Yes, you're giving them a personality.
Right.
And a reason for being.
Yeah, and I bet it makes for a much more engaging gameplay, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. A flawless, always successful character
Right.
is predictable and honestly a little boring.
Yeah.
But a character that has to struggle, who makes mistakes,
Right.
who has to find creative ways to overcome their limitations.
Yeah.
That's a character we want to follow.
Okay.
A character whose story we're invested in.
So we're not just talking about slapping on a random quirk for laughs.
Right.
This is about weaving these imperfections
Yes.
into the fabric of the character, right?
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
It's about integrating these quirks and flaws into their backstory, their motivations, their actions.
Okay.
And that's where the real magic happens.
So we've established that quirks and flaws are good.
Right.
They make characters more interesting
Yes.
and relatable.
Yeah.
But how do we actually go about designing characters with these memorable quirks and flaws?
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Well, the article has some great tips.
Okay.
And I think the first step is to think about contradictions.
Okay.
We tend to think of character traits in terms of archetypes.
Right.
The brave warrior, the wise wizard, the cunning rogue.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when we challenge those assumptions?
Okay.
What if we have a warrior who's afraid of heights?
Okay.
A wizard who can't do math?
Right.
Or a rogue who's incredibly clumsy?
Those are some interesting ideas.
Yeah.
I could already see how those contradictions would create some hilarious,
right,
and unexpected situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding those juxtapositions that make your character stand out from the crowd. Right. And the LitRPG Reads article gives a few specific examples that I absolutely loved.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for instance, imagine a druid who absolutely hates forests.
A druid who hates forests.
I know.
That's brilliant.
Right.
It goes against everything we typically associate with druids.
Yeah.
But I bet it makes for a really unique and compelling character.
Right.
How would that even work, though?
Yeah.
Where would they get their power from?
Well, that's where the fun comes in.
Okay.
Maybe they find their connection to nature in the bustling heart of a city.
Okay.
Tending to rooftop gardens or communing with the spirits of urban wildlife.
Right.
Or maybe they have this like strained, almost adversarial relationship with nature, drawing their power from a place of conflict rather than harmony.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like taking this familiar trope and flipping it on its head.
Exactly.
You know, and it forces us to reconsider our assumptions.
Right.
About what a certain type of character should be like. Yeah. Are there any other examples from the article that stood out to you?
Absolutely. Another one that I really liked was the idea of a barbarian who's a pacifist at heart.
A pacifist barbarian.
I know, right?
Isn't that a bit of an oxymoron?
Yeah.
I mean, barbarians are all about rage and combat.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so intriguing.
Oh.
Imagine this like hulking, intimidating warrior who's actually a gentle giant who abhors violence but is forced to fight because of circumstance or duty.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here.
Yeah.
It's like they're constantly battling their own nature, this internal conflict between their peaceful inclinations and their warrior instincts.
Yeah.
That could lead to some really interesting role-playing moments.
Absolutely. And think about the story possibilities.
Okay.
Maybe they're on a quest to find a peaceful solution to a conflict.
Right.
Or maybe they're trying to atone for past acts of violence.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not just about the character's abilities. It's about their internal struggles, their beliefs, their values.
Exactly.
Yeah, it adds so much depth and complexity to the game.
Right, and the article even suggests thinking about quirks that are completely mundane or even seemingly pointless.
Like what?
Like a fighter who collects bottle caps.
Okay.
Or a wizard who refuses to wear matching socks.
Wait, a fighter who collects bottle caps?
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
That's the beauty of it.
Okay.
Sometimes the most memorable quirks are the ones that don't have a clear purpose or explanation. They're just little eccentricities that make your character feel more real, more human.
So it's not always about finding a quirk that's going to give your character some kind of advantage in the game.
Yeah.
It's about adding those little details that make them unique and memorable.
Exactly. Think of it like adding spices to a dish.
Okay.
You don't need a lot. But a few well-placed quirks and flaws can add a whole new layer of flavor and complexity to your character.
All right.
And just like with spices, it's all about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
You don't want to go overboard and end up with something that's overwhelming or unpalatable.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
So how do we strike that balance? How do we make sure that our quirks and flaws are enhancing the game rather than distracting from it?
That's a great question, and that's where communication and collaboration come in. Talk to your DM and your fellow players. Make sure your quirks and flaws are integrated into the story in a way that makes sense. And that, you know, it doesn't derail the game. You know, it's all about finding those moments where your quirks can shine without overshadowing everyone else's contributions.
It's like an improv group.
Right.
Everyone needs to be on the same page, working together to create something amazing.
Yeah, and the article makes this great point about how these quirks and flaws can become like drivers of the narrative. Like imagine a character with a fear of failure embarking on a quest for redemption. Or a character who struggles to trust. Learning to open up and form meaningful relationships.
Yeah, so it's not just about adding personality. It's about adding depth and complexity to the story itself.
Exactly.
And using those quirks and flaws to create meaningful character arcs.
Precisely think about how much richer a story becomes when characters have to overcome these internal obstacles as well as external challenges. It creates opportunities for growth, for change, for those aha moments that make us truly connect with a character.
That reminds me of a campaign I played in a while back where my character, a rogue, had a crippling fear of heights.
Oh, wow.
Which made for some hilarious moments. Yeah. Like during rooftop chases and mountain climbs.
I'd bet.
But it also led to some, really powerful character development.
Okay.
At one point, the party had to scale this sheer cliff face to reach this hidden temple.
Right.
And my character was absolutely terrified.
Oh, no.
But he knew he had to do it.
Yeah.
For the sake of the mission and for his friends.
What happened? Did he conquer his fear?
He did.
Wow.
It was a slow and agonizing process. But with the support of the party, he managed to push through his terror and reach the top.
That's awesome.
And it was like this pivotal moment for his character.
Right.
And it really solidified the bond between him and the rest of the group.
That's great.
And from that point on, whenever he faced a situation that triggered his fear, he was able to draw on that experience and find the courage to overcome it.
That's a fantastic example of how a seemingly simple quirk can become a catalyst for growth and change.
Right.
It's not just about the fear itself. Wow. It's about how the character responds to that fear.
Right.
How they learn and evolve as a result of their experiences.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes D&D so much more than just a game. It's a collaborative storytelling experience.
Yeah.
Where we can explore these complex characters and watch them grow and change over time.
Absolutely. And speaking of growth and change, one of the things I found really intriguing in the article was this idea that quirks and flaws can evolve over time.
Okay.
So like a rogue who's terrified of spiders at the beginning of the campaign might become a fearless arachnid slayer after a series of encounters.
Oh, wow.
It's not just about leveling up their stats.
Okay.
It's about personal growth and overcoming challenges.
That's such a cool way to think about character development.
Right.
It's like those flaws become the starting point for a journey of self-discovery and improvement.
Yeah.
They're not static, they're dynamic.
Right.
They can change and adapt
as
the character experiences new things and faces new challenges.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key point to remember. When designing characters with quirks and flaws, don't be afraid to let them evolve and change over time.
Okay.
A character who starts out as incredibly shy and introverted might become more confident and outspoken as they gain experience and learn to trust their companions.
Okay.
A character who's initially quick to anger might learn to control their temper and find more constructive ways to channel their emotions.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
It's like those quirks and flaws are the seeds that, with the right care and attention, can blossom into something truly remarkable.
And to really bring this point home, the article gives some fantastic examples
of
quirky and flawed characters in action.
Oh, I like this.
So they present these archetypes, but with these surprising twists that you wouldn't typically expect.
Yeah, give me the good stuff. What kind of characters are we talking about?
Well, one example that stood out to me was the nervous warlock with stage fright.
Okay, a nervous warlock with stage fright.
Yeah, picture this: an incredibly powerful magic user can summon demons and bend reality to their will.
Right.
But the moment they have to speak in front of a crowd, they freeze up.
Oh, I can already see the comedy potential there.
Right.
This terrifying warlock capable of unleashing untold chaos.
Yeah.
But they just crumble at the thought of public speaking.
I know, right?
It's a fantastic contrast.
Exactly. It creates this delightful tension between their immense power and their crippling social anxiety. Makes them unpredictable, both for the players at the table and for the other characters in the game.
So how would that play out in actual gameplay?
Yeah.
Would their stage fright actually impact their ability to cast spells or interact with others?
It absolutely could.
Yeah.
Maybe they have to make a performance check every time they try to cast a spell in front of an audience, or with the possibility of fumbling or even miscasting if they fail.
Right.
Or maybe their anxiety manifests as a stutter or a nervous tick.
It makes it difficult for them to communicate effectively.
Those are some really fun and creative ways to integrate that quirk into the mechanics of the game.
Right.
It makes it more than just a funny personality trait. It actually has tangible consequences.
Exactly.
And adds a layer of challenge to their actions.
Precisely. And that's what makes it so compelling.
Right.
It's not just about the quirk itself.
Yeah.
It's about how it affects the character's actions and choices.
Right.
And how those choices, in turn, impact the story.
It's like this ripple effect, right?
Exactly.
One little quirk can have far-reaching consequences and lead to all sorts of unexpected twists and turns in the narrative.
Exactly. And the article goes on to describe another interesting character concept.
Okay, what's that?
The druid obsessed with urban life.
Okay, a druid obsessed with urban life.
Yeah, so instead of the typical nature-loving, tree-hugging druid, you have this druid who's fascinated by cities.
By the hustle and bustle, by the interconnectedness of urban life.
That's such a cool twist on the classic druid archetype.
Right.
I love how it challenges our preconceived notions about what it means to be connected to nature.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how their magic would manifest in an urban environment.
Right. Would they be able to, like, control traffic lights?
Yeah.
Communicate with pigeons? Perhaps they'd have a unique understanding of urban ecosystems, like how magic flows through the city, how people and buildings interact with the natural world in unexpected ways.
I love the idea of them having this deep understanding of the hidden magic that exists within the concrete jungle.
Right.
Maybe they draw their power from the energy of the city itself, the flow of people, the pulse of electricity, the hum of technology.
Yeah.
It's like they found a way to tap into a different kind of natural energy.
Right.
One that's often overlooked or dismissed.
And think about the potential for conflict and drama.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they clash with traditional druids who view cities as abominations.
Right.
Or maybe they have to defend their urban sanctuary from forces that seek to destroy or exploit its unique magic.
It opens up a whole new world of possibilities for storytelling and character development.
Right.
And it really highlights the point that nature isn't just about forests and mountains. It's about life in all its forms, even in the most unexpected places.
And then, to really shake things up, the article presents the barbarian who hates conflict.
Wait, a barbarian who hates conflict?
I know, right?
Isn't that like their whole deal?
Yeah.
Rage, violence, smashing things?
I know, it seems totally counterintuitive, but that's what makes this concept so brilliant.
Okay.
Imagine the potential for humor and pathos.
Okay.
You have this hulking, intimidating warrior who's actually a gentle giant at heart.
Okay.
Who'd rather talk things out than resort to violence.
I'm picturing this massive barbarian trying to break up a tavern brawl by offering everyone hugs and cookies.
I love it.
It's hilarious and heartwarming at the same time.
Exactly. And think about the internal conflict they must grapple with. Like, their entire culture and upbringing revolves around combat and strength.
Right.
But their heart longs for peace and harmony.
Yeah.
It's this constant battle between nature and nurture.
Right.
Between their instincts and their ideals.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. It's like they're this walking paradox, a force of destruction that yearns for creation.
Right.
And that creates so much potential for interesting role-playing and storytelling. You know, do they try to change the barbarian culture from within?
Yeah.
Or do they become a reluctant hero?
Right.
Forced to fight for what they believe in, despite their aversion to violence?
Those are great questions, and the article touches on this idea.
Right.
That this kind of character could lead to some really thought-provoking moral dilemmas. What does a pacifist barbarian do when faced with a truly evil foe?
Yeah.
Do they compromise their beliefs, or do they find a different way to fight? A way that doesn't involve violence?
It's like they have to constantly choose between what's easy and what's right.
Exactly.
And that's what makes them so compelling. They're not just reacting to events.
Right.
They're actively grappling with their own conscience.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out their place in the world.
And that struggle, that internal conflict, is what makes them so relatable to us as players.
Right.
We all face those kinds of dilemmas in our own lives.
Yeah.
Those moments where we have to choose between what's comfortable and what's true to ourselves.
It's like those characters become a reflection of our own struggles.
Right.
And by watching them navigate those challenges, we gain insights into our own lives and our own choices.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of D&D.
Yeah.
It's not just about escaping into a fantasy world.
Right.
It's about exploring the complexities of the human experience, about understanding ourselves and each other better.
And to think it all starts with embracing those little imperfections.
Right.
Those quirks and flaws that make our characters feel real.
Yeah.
Relatable, and ultimately unforgettable.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that these quirks and flaws aren't just for the players to enjoy.
Okay.
They can also be incredibly useful tools for dungeon masters who are looking to create more engaging and memorable encounters and storylines.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
How can dungeon masters use these concepts to enhance their campaigns?
Right.
Do you have any advice for them?
Well, one thing they can do is to incorporate character quirks and flaws into the challenges and obstacles that the players face. So, for example, if you have a player, he's playing a character with a fear of heights, you might design an encounter that takes place on a precarious mountain path.
Right.
Or like a crumbling bridge. This forces the player to confront their fear in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And it creates a more tense and exciting situation for everyone involved.
That's such a clever way to use those quirks to create tension and raise the stakes.
Yeah.
It makes the challenges feel more personal and impactful.
Exactly.
Because they're directly tied to the character's vulnerabilities.
And it's not just about physical challenges either.
Yep.
You can also use quirks and flaws to create like social or emotional obstacles.
Okay.
Maybe a character with a sharp tongue has to negotiate with a prickly diplomat.
Right.
Or a character who's afraid of failure has to perform a task that's crucial to the success of the mission.
It's like you're custom tailoring the challenges to the individual character, which makes the game feel more personalized and immersive.
Exactly.
And it gives the players a chance to really shine by demonstrating how their characters overcome their weaknesses and achieve their goals.
And another great tip for dungeon masters is to use character quirks and flaws to create opportunities for role-playing and character development.
Right.
So instead of just presenting like a series of combat encounters or puzzles, try to incorporate situations that require the players to interact with each other and with the world around them in ways that highlight their characters' personalities.
So like maybe you have a social gathering.
Yeah.
Where a character who's shy and introverted has to mingle with a room full of strangers.
Exactly.
Or a character who's prone to outbursts of anger.
Right.
Has to maintain their composure during a tense negotiation.
These types of scenarios force the players to think about their characters' motivations and reactions, and they create opportunities for these unexpected and memorable moments of role-playing.
It's like you're giving them a chance to explore the nuances of their characters and to see how those quirks and flaws play out in different social and emotional contexts.
Right, and that's where the real magic of D&D happens, when the players start to inhabit their characters fully.
Right.
And the lines between game and reality begin to blur.
Absolutely. And by creating these kinds of immersive and engaging experiences, dungeon masters can help their players to create characters and stories that will stay with them long after the game is over.
So it's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
Both the players and the dungeon master have a role to play in bringing these quirky and flawed characters to life and making them integral parts of the story.
Yeah, when everyone's on the same page and working together, that's when the real magic happens.
Couldn't agree more. It's a collaborative effort. A symphony of creativity and imagination that results in something truly unique and special.
And to think it all starts with embracing those little imperfections, those quirks and flaws that make our characters feel real, relatable, and ultimately unforgettable. Yeah. It really is amazing how these seemingly small details, these quirks and flaws, can have such a profound impact on the game.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're the secret ingredient that elevates a good D&D campaign to something truly extraordinary.
And speaking of extraordinary, I think it's only fair that we give a nod to LitRPG Reads and author Paul Bello for that fantastic article that inspired our deep dive today.
Absolutely. You can find a link to the secret to creating memorable D&D characters in the show notes below.
Awesome.
Be sure to check it out for even more tips and inspiration on how to breathe life into your characters.
It's a must-read for any D&D enthusiast who wants to take their character creation to the next level.
But before we wrap things up,
I
want to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
All right.
What's the most memorable quirk or flaw you've encountered or played in a D&D game? And how did it impact the story?
That's a great question. I'm eager to hear what our listeners have to say.
Me too. Share your stories in the comments below.
Yeah.
We can all learn from each other and get inspired by the creativity and ingenuity of the D&D community.
Absolutely, because ultimately it's those little details. Those quirks and flaws that make our D&D stories so unique and so special.
So embrace the imperfections, folks.
Yes.
They're the key to creating characters and campaigns that will stay with you.
Right.
Long after the dice have stopped rolling.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.